No, girl, let me show you something. See this? It's just a key, a simple brass colored key to my shop. But for me, holding this in my hand right now, Chile, this is the whole case file. This is the final judgment. The sound this key made in the lock about an hour ago, that little click, that was the sound of a 27-year-old debt getting paid in full. This ain't just about a disagreement no more. This was a verdict. And this plain old key was the gavel. I'm telling you this woman to woman because you gotta understand how deep some things run. If I had missed the lesson in all that pain, if I had let my heart get the best of my head today, everything I built would have crumbled. Everything. I'm gonna tell you the whole story from the beginning to the bitter end. And when I'm done, I'm gonna give you the 3 things I wish somebody had told me back when I was drowning. The 3 things I'd tell any woman who feels like her world is ending. Just hold on to that, 'cause you're gonna need it. It all started this afternoon. It was a Tuesday, slow and quiet, the sun hitting just right on the jars of my rose water and hibiscus toner. My shop, Nell's Bloom, is my piece, you know. It's on the south side, right on 47th, and it's everything I ever dreamed of. The smell of shea butter, sweet orange oil, the low hum of the refrigerator where I keep the clay masks cool. That's my sanctuary. I was in the back checking inventory on my laptop, just vibing to some quiet storm, when the little bell on the front door chimed. I put on my customer service smile and walked out, ready to tell somebody all about our new whipped mango body butter, but the smile just slid right off my face. Standing there, looking like a ghost somebody forgot to bury, was my sister Jasmine. Girl. When I say she looked raggedy, I mean the fabric of her soul was worn thin. Her hair, which my mama always used to praise as her crowning glory, was matted and dry. She had on some dingy sweatpants and a hoodie with a stain on it, and she was holding a baby, a tiny little thing wrapped in a thin, pilled-up blanket, sleeping against her chest. Her eyes met mine across the shop, and all the air just left the room. 27 years of history just flooded that space. All the hurt, all the slights, all the times I was made to feel like I was second best. It was all right there, standing in front of my counter. Seeing her broke down and pitiful like that, it didn't make me feel sad for her. Nah, it just dragged me right back to our house outside of Atlanta with the big magnolia tree in the front yard. A house where there were 2 daughters, but only one princess. And that princess was always Jasmine. If Jasmine wanted the last piece of peach cobbler, she got it. If she wanted new shoes for the school dance, my daddy was at the mall that same day. If she broke one of my mama's good plates, it was, oh, accidents happen, sweetie. If I did it, Chile, my behind was getting tanned and I was on punishment for a week. Jasmine could do no wrong. She was the golden child, the pretty one, the smart one. I was just Janelle, the quiet one, the one who had to figure it out on her own. My folks would tell me, Janelle, you gotta be strong, you gotta be independent. What they meant was, we ain't got the energy for you, 'cause all of it is going to your sister. When it came time for college, they paid for Jasmine to go to Spelman, no questions asked. For me, it was, well, you know, money is tight, Janelle. Maybe you can look at a state school. Get you some loans. So I did. I worked my tail off, got scholarships, and went to school for cosmetic science. I was fascinated by it, how you could take oils and botanicals and create something that made women feel beautiful. It was my passion. And for the first time, it was mine. Jasmine had nothing to do with it. It was in college that I met Marcus. He was sharp, ambitious, a couple years older than me, already starting his own little tech company. And he saw me, not Jasmine's sister, just Janelle. He had listened when I talked about formulating serums, his eyes all focused. He told me I was brilliant. Girl, for the first time in my life, I felt like I was somebody's number one. We got married 2 years after I graduated, a beautiful ceremony right by the lake. I felt like I had finally built a life that was separate from the shadow of my family. But the shadow got a long reach. At my own wedding, I should have known something was off. During the reception, I was looking for Marcus to do the cake cutting, and I found him in a corner with Jasmine. She was laughing, her hand on his arm, leaning in it way too close. When she saw me, she snatched her hand back like she'd been burned. She gave me this tight little smile and said, "Oh, I was just telling Marcus how lucky he is to have you." But her eyes, girl, her eyes said something completely different. I tried to shake it off. I told myself I was being paranoid, insecure. That was my first mistake. I ain't know it yet, but the first crack in my foundation had just been put there by my own sister at my own wedding. And now, all these years later, here she was, standing in the middle of the life I had to rebuild from the rubble she left behind. She took a step forward, the floorboards creaking under her worn-out sneakers. The baby stirred a little. Her voice was raspy, like she'd been crying for a week straight. "Janelle," she said, I need your help." And I just stood there behind the counter of my beautiful shop, the one I built with my own 2 hands. And I looked at the woman who burned my entire world down. And all I could think was, "You gotta be kidding me." I just let her talk. It was like watching a movie I'd already seen, but from the villain's point of view. She stood there, shifting her weight from one foot to the other, the baby making these little mewling sounds, and she just unspooled the whole sorry tale. And while she was talking, my mind was just flashing back, connecting the dots she was laying out now with the hell she put me through back then. It was wild, girl, hearing her version of events after I had lived through the wreckage of the real ones. She started telling me how hard things had been, how Marcus had changed. Changed? Chili, please. The Marcus she was describing was the same man I knew, the one whose true colors I saw way too late. After we got married, Jasmine was always at our house. Always. She had a key. Just in case of emergencies, my mama had insisted. She'd pop up on a Tuesday afternoon when I was at work, saying she was just dropping something off for me. She'd be there on a Saturday morning, lounging on our sofa in her little workout clothes, laughing all loud as something Marcus said. I tried to talk to him about it. I'd say, "Marcus, don't you think it's a little weird that my sister's here more than we are?" And he would do this thing. He'd get this calm, reasonable tone, and he'd flip it all back on me. "Babe, are you serious? That's your sister. You sound insecure. Don't you trust me?" He was so good at it. He made me feel like I was crazy, like I was the one with the problem. I was the jealous, insecure wife who couldn't handle her husband being friendly with her own sister. And I started to believe it. I really did. I started thinking, maybe I am tripping. Maybe I'm just not used to having a happy, stable life, and I'm looking for something to be wrong. My biggest mistake, hun, was letting him define my reality. Don't ever let nobody do that to you. Ever. And while Jasmine is standing in my shop, crying about how Marcus became so controlling, I'm remembering the night it all fell apart. I came home early from a work dinner. It was a Thursday. I remember because we had just bought new sheets, this beautiful Egyptian cotton set, and they were supposed to be delivered. I walked in and the whole house was quiet, but the air was thick with something. And then I smelled it. Her perfume. That cheap gardenia mess she always wore. It was lingering in the hallway. I walked into our bedroom, and he was in there just getting out of the shower. He looked startled, his eyes all wide. And I just knew. I didn't even have to ask. The smell of her was on the pillows. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just stood in the doorway and said, "Get out." He tried to lie, of course. Tried to say she had just stopped by to drop off a book. A book? At 9 o'clock at night? I just looked at him. And then his face crumpled and he admitted it. All of it. They've been together for 6 months. 6 months. In our house, in our bed, while I was at work, trying to build a life for us. So when Jasmine is in my shop, telling me with tears in her eyes, he cheated on me, Janelle. I can't believe he would do that to me. A part of me almost laughed out loud. The audacity, the absolute nerve. She's crying to me about the very snake she let into my garden. I'm listening to her, but I'm back on the phone that night, calling my mama, my voice shaking, barely able to get the words out. I told her what happened. I was hysterical, just wanting my mother. And you know what she said to me, girl? She said, "Janelle, are you sure? You can be a little dramatic sometimes." And then, when I insisted, when I told her Marcus had confessed, she said, "Well, honey, we can't have you come stay here right now. Your father and I are about to get the whole house renovated. The dust would be terrible for you." Renovations. I found out a week later from my cousin that there were no renovations. They just didn't want to deal with my mess. They chose her. Even then, they chose the one who was in the wrong. The divorce was a nightmare. Turns out that prenup Marcus had me sign, the one his fancy lawyer from that big firm downtown on Peachtree Street drafted, was ironclad. He had me sign it a week before the wedding, telling me it was just a formality, a way to protect his company. I was so in love, so trusting. I barely even read it. I learned a hard lesson right there. I was left with basically nothing. My car, my personal savings, which wasn't much. He kept the house, everything. And then, to add insult to injury, he got me fired. He called up the CEO of the cosmetics company I was working for. They played golf together, and told him some lie about me stealing formulas. I was called into HR the next Monday, and that was that. He even went a step further, and I called every local supplier I had a relationship with and blackballed me. Told them I was unreliable. He wasn't just leaving me. He was trying to destroy me. That's when I hit rock bottom. I was in this raggedy little one-bedroom apartment I could barely afford, and one afternoon I came home to an eviction notice taped to my door. One of them official ones from the county sheriff's office with the red lettering. I just slid down the door and sat on that dirty hallway carpet and cried. I had nothing, no job, no husband, no family to call. I was completely and utterly alone. I felt like my life was over. I really did. But then, a few days later, I got a card in the mail. It was from Ms. Brenda, this older woman I used to work with. She was quiet, but always kind. Inside the card, there was a check for $200, and she had written, "Janelle, I heard what happened, and my heart breaks for you. But you are a phoenix. Don't you let that man burn you to the ground. Use this for whatever you need. Rise up. $200. Girl, it felt like 2 million. But it wasn't even about the money. It was her words. Rise up. That little spark of kindness in the middle of all that darkness. It lit a fire in me, an anger. I wasn't just sad anymore. I was mad. How dare they? How dare all of them try to throw me away like I was nothing? Nah. That was going to be the end of my story. So I took that $200, cashed it at the currency exchange, and used it to buy groceries and pay my phone bill. I took the last couple grand I had in my savings, walked into a local credit union, not a big bank, they would have laughed at me, and I laid out a business plan. I got a small business loan for $15,000. It was just enough. I found a soul-crushing temp job doing data entry from 9 to 5, and from 6 in the evening until 2 in the morning, my apartment became a lab. I bought beakers and mixing bowls from a restaurant supply store. I ordered raw shea butter and jojoba oil and hyaluronic acid powder in bulk. I started mixing, testing, creating. I put all my pain, all my anger, all my hope into those little amber glass bottles. Nell's Bloom was born right there, on the stained countertop of a kitchen I was about to get evicted from. I worked like that for 2 years. Grinding. No social life. Just work, mix, package, ship. I built a little website on Shopify. Sales were slow at first. 10 orders a week, then 20. I was just barely scraping by. Then one day, out of the blue, this big beauty blogger from Chicago found my site. She ordered my Sunrise Glow Vitamin C serum, and she loved it. She posted this long, glowing review talking about how it cleared up her hyperpigmentation better than anything she'd ever tried. Chile. I woke up the next morning to the sound of my phone buzzing non-stop. It was the Shopify notification. Cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching. It just kept going. I had over 500 orders in one night. I sat on my floor and cried, but this time they were happy tears. That was the turning point. That was when I knew I was going to make it. I packed up my life, what little there was, and I moved to Chicago, where my biggest customer base was. I found this little storefront on the south side, poured every dime I had into it, and I built my dream. And now, here stands the architect of my destruction, holding a baby that ain't even his, telling me her world has fallen apart and she has nowhere to go. She's looking at me with these big, teary eyes, the same eyes that used to get her anything she wanted from our parents, the same eyes that watched me get gaslit and betrayed. She's expecting me to be her safety net, the same one my family pulled out from under me without a second thought. She finally ran out of words. Her whole sad story was laid out on the floor of my shop, right next to a display of my best-selling body creams. She looked at me, her face full of pathetic hope, and sniffled. So, can I just stay with you for a little while, Janelle? Just until I get back on my feet. For the baby. And here's the thing, girl. The old Janelle, the one who was desperate for a crumb of love from her family, she might have said yes. She would have felt guilty. She would have thought, but that's my sister. That's my niece or nephew. But that Janelle died in that apartment with the eviction notice on the door. The woman standing here now, she is the one who rose from those ashes. And she is done. Done being the bigger person. Done turning the other cheek. My cheeks were raw from being slapped. I took a deep breath. The air still smelled like shea butter and sweet orange. My air in my shop. I looked her dead in the eye, my voice calm and even. No anger, no tears, just clarity, cold, hard clarity. I said, Jasmine, I heard everything you said, and honestly, I don't feel sorry for you. Her face just fell, like she couldn't compute what I was saying. It was like a foreign language to her. She was so used to her tears working on people, especially on me. You made your choices, I continued, my voice staying level. You made them when you crept into my house behind my back. You made them when you laid in my bed with my husband. You and Mom and Daddy made your choices when you left me with nothing and nowhere to go. You all decided I was your problem. You decided I had to figure it out on my own. I walked around the counter, slowly, deliberately. I wasn't trying to be intimidating. I was just closing the distance. I stopped a few feet from her. And I did, I said, my voice getting a little stronger. I figured it out. I built all of this. I gestured around my beautiful, peaceful shop with no help from any of you. I built this on a foundation of your betrayal. So you don't get to come here now, to the house I built from the bricks you threw at me, and ask for shelter. You are not my problem anymore, Jasmine. You gotta go figure it out. Tears were streaming down her face now. Real ugly crying. But the baby, she wailed. What about the baby? Has your nephew. That baby is the consequence of your actions, I said, my voice like ice. And just like I had to deal with mine, you have to deal with yours. You should have thought about him when you were wrecking my life. I walked to the front door and held it open. The little bell chimed. You need to leave, I said. It wasn't a request. She stood there for a second, just stunned, like she couldn't believe this was happening. Then, with this look of pure, venomous hatred, she snatched the baby closer to her chest and stormed past me out the door. She didn't say another word. I watched her walk down the street until she was just a small, pathetic shape in the distance. Then I closed the door. I turned the lock. And that click. Girl, that was the sweetest sound I have ever heard. It was the sound of freedom. The sound of a chapter, a whole book, finally being closed. I ain't heard from her directly since. But you know how word travels. I heard through my cousin about 6 months later that Marco's little tech company went under. Turns out he wasn't as smart as he thought he was, and he made some bad investments. Lost everything. Last I heard, he was living in some busted apartment over on the west side of Atlanta. And Jasmine? She ended up crawling back to our parents, and the mess she was in was so deep, the baby, the debt, she'd run up, that they had to sell the house. The big beautiful house with the magnolia tree. They sold it to clean up her mess, and now the 3 of them are all crammed into some little rental 2 counties over. Broke. All of them. They burned their own lives down trying to protect the golden child who was never worth the gold in the first place. And me, Nels Bloom is thriving. I just signed a lease on a second location up north. And I met someone. His name is Darius. He's a good man, a kind man. He looks at me like I'm magic. He treats me like M, his number 1, for real this time. Looking back on it all now, holding this key in my hand, I finally see it all so clearly, which brings me to those 3 things I promised you. If you get nothing else from my story, get this. First, when your gut is talking to you, you better listen. It knows things your heart ain't ready to accept. I knew something was off with Jasmine and Marcus from the jump, but I let them convince me I was crazy. Never again. Your intuition is your guardian angel. Second, read every single line of any paper somebody asks you to sign. I don't care how much you love them. A contract ain't about love. It's about protection. That prenup taught me a brutal lesson. Protect yourself, because nobody else is going to do it for you. Get your own lawyer, always. And third, and this is the most important one, girl, family ain't always blood. Ms. Brenda, with her $200 check and her kind words, was more of a mother to me in that moment than my own had been my entire life. Sometimes the family you choose is the one that will actually show up when you need them. So yeah, that's the story. It ain't about revenge, not really. It's about justice, it's about consequences. I didn't have to do anything to them. I just stopped saving them from themselves. I just locked the door. And that little click, that was the sound of me finally choosing myself. And it was the beginning of everything.
Thank you, Janelle, for sharing this story with us. Chile, what a journey. To go from having the rug pulled out from under you by the very people who's supposed to hold you up, to building a whole new life from the ashes. I'm telling you, that final click of the lock on her shop door wasn't just about her sister. That sound was Janelle choosing herself, for real. See, it was the sound of peace finally settling in after a long, hard storm. What a testimony. Now, look, there are some powerful lessons in here for all of us. The mistake folks stay making is thinking a piece of paper is just a formality. When her husband put that prenup in front of her, she trusted him. A prenup, let me break that down for y'all. It's just a contract couples sign before they get married about how money and property get split up if things go south. And you don't ever sign a contract that big without having your own lawyer look at it. I don't care how in love you are. Seriously. And listen, another thing that be hitting close to home for a lot of folks is that family dynamic. Janelle was done being the bigger person, and there ain't no shame in that. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is lock the door on people who only show up when they need something from you. Your peace is worth more than their problems. Okay? That's a rule to remember right there. If I had to break this down for somebody going through something similar, I'd say this. You got to listen to that little voice inside you. Janelle felt something wasn't right at her own wedding, you know? She let folks talk her out of her own feelings. Don't let nobody tell you what you see and what you feel ain't real. Honestly, a story like this just reminds you of your own strength. Janelle found family in a kind coworker and found power in her own two hands. If this story gave you something to think about, go ahead and subscribe and hit that thumbs up. Let me know in the comments which city or state y'all watching from. And right now on the screen, you're going to see other videos from the channel. Click one and let's keep going.